Good evening, everyone. It is I, Drive Ghost, and welcome back to my Versus Debate series, JoJo, A Battle of the Intelligent Apes. Now, I went over some clarification in the first episode, which was the last one, and so I suggest you watch that one, because I give a few disclaimers there, and I don't want to repeat them every single episode. So, let's just jump right into it. I'm going to clarify first that I am using the 1998 version of Mojo Jojo, not the reboot version, C version, and I'm going with General Gorilla Grodd. In other words, not his strongest or weakest versions, but trying to land somewhere in between. Because as we know, scaling in DC can get pretty ridiculous, so let's get right to it. Starting off with physical strength or attack potency, since Gorilla Grodd has multiple versions, there are a bunch of different strength feats we can go into. However, he most consistently fights against the Flash, and is more often than not shown to be physically stronger than him. You could chalk that up to people not factoring in that super speed would also give him super strength, but regardless, that's how we have to scale him, because otherwise he's just a monkey. So, stronger than the Flash, but on multiple occasions he's been overwhelmed by powerhouses like Superman. But you can't really hold that against him because, it's Superman. He's a gorilla. So, obviously he's going to be weaker than Superman. There are other Leaguers who have overwhelmed him sometimes. But generally, it's best to scale him to the Flash, because that's his most consistent enemy. He's fought Batman sometimes, but Batman doesn't have, superhuman strength feats, unless you absolutely wank him. So, scaling to Flash, Grodd's strength could range from City Block level to Star level or greater, but on average I would say Grodd himself is closer to City level at most through scaling. Through feats he's obviously much less than that, but strictly through scaling I could put him at City level. Mojo Jojo, on the other hand, his base strength is somewhat limited sometimes, though he's still above a normal human. However, Mojo has a sort of primal rage state that he can enter when angered or highly stressed, and in this state he has performed some pretty crazy feats, such as overwhelming a giant enemy that the Powerpuff Girls were struggling against, which would easily put his strength and attack potency to mountain or island level, going off of feats that I found online and from my own experience watching the show. So, at his peak, Mojo is mountain or island level, but on average, he's a little bit less than that. Moving on to durability and stamina, Grodd has tanked super speed attacks from the Flash, as well as heavy-hitting attacks from Batman, which could be negligible. However, he's also sometimes taken attacks from other League members, but he's also been knocked out by similar levels of power or less, just chalk it up to inconsistency. If I were to try scaling him on his average, comparing to the Justice League members he fights, I would say that his durability would be anywhere between City Block or City level, so on the high end, he's City level. However, his stamina isn't particularly impressive, though it's also not particularly low. I'd say his stamina is probably just that of a gorilla, though likely more. On the other hand, Mojo Jojo is exceptionally durable. He's taken multiple direct attacks from all three of the Powerpuff Girls, and on some occasions they've even been hitting him as hard as they can, and he's not only survived, but has remained conscious. This easily puts his durability in mountain or island level. His stamina and pain tolerance are also superhuman, as he's not only fought the girls for extended periods of time, but as mentioned before, he's not only survived taking a beating from all three of them at once, but in some cases he's even remained fully conscious, showing that he has an incredibly high pain tolerance, and can fight high-level opponents for long periods of time. Despite his size, Grodd has shown impressive speed and mobility, being able to leap and swing around in relatively confined spaces like decently sized rooms. In some cases he's also used his intelligence to predict the Flash's movements and tag him, which you could say is not really a speed feat, but to be able to do that, he would need at least superhuman reaction speed, because if he wasn't able to at least react to him to some degree, then predicting his movements would be useless, because he wouldn't be able to see him moving. On the other hand, Mojo Jojo has more consistent speed. He's kept up with and tracked the Powerpuff Girls on multiple occasions, which through scaling to them would give him FTL movement speed, as well as reaction speed. When in his primal rage, he was also seemingly able to fly on some occasions, at least for brief periods of time, which could be connected to the chemical X within him. And a slight disclaimer on this, I actually don't remember him flying, but it's also been a very long time since I've seen the scene, and this was stated on the wiki, the Powerpuff Girl. So my microphone did the bullshit thing that it does sometimes and just stopped fucking working, so I don't know where I got cut off there, but I was saying that I haven't seen the flying feat in a long time, but the wiki states that it happens twice, so I'm trusting it. Moving on to their techniques and abilities, I added abilities to this one, it wasn't in the last one, for Splinter vs. Shifu. I forgot to add the abilities caveat. But anyway, Grodd is a genius who has invented many great machines, and he often uses his intellect to make strategies which have let him keep pace with much stronger foes, such as Justice League members. He also has, most notably, powerful psychic abilities, which grant him telekinesis, mind reading, and mind control. However, a little bit of a caveat with his mind control, sometimes a high level of intelligence or willpower has allowed people to resist it, to resist his mind control, that is. I mean, Superman did it and flicked him through a friggin' field goal. So, if you have a strong enough will or are smart enough, you can just straight up resist his mind control. Like Grodd, Mojo Jojo is a genius, though his common sense is questionable. He's good at making evil plans and knows when a plan could go too far, such as when he stopped Bubbles because he realized 2 Mojo Jojos was too much, and he scolded him for doing something that was honestly pretty dumb. Mojo has his aforementioned primal rage, which boosts his physical abilities and stamina to levels greater than that of the Powerpuff Girls, though this typically doesn't last a long time, as he tends to calm down. Moving on to equipment, Grodd's most typical equipment, you could say, is weaponry like blasters, though he also has his devolution devices, which can turn humans back into apes and just generally devolve creatures. He also sometimes has technology which can enhance his psychic abilities and or focus them. Mojo Jojo not only has a wide variety of advanced weaponry such as lasers and explosives, but has a wide assortment of artifacts, robots, and mech suits, all of which have overpowered the Powerpuff Girls at least once. Mojo also has powerful one-off or two-off equipment such as the Key to the City, which at full potential gives him planet-level capabilities, or the artifact which can turn people into dogs. While he's had the artifact twice, he's only had the Key to the City once, so it's very debatable whether or not he should have that, but I think you could, in some cases, reasonably give him the artifact, especially if you're giving Grodd his devolution devices. Moving on to notable weaknesses, he can often be caught off guard when he believes he's won, such as when he was trying to mind control Superman and Lex Luthor, one of which led to his actual death. And while he's not as short-sighted or clumsy as Mojo Jojo, Grodd has failed to make contingencies for things which should be pretty obvious sometimes. Like, surely he knew that those gorillas had headbands in Justice League Unlimited, which could negate his mind control. Like, surely he had to have known about that. How could he not? Or at least, like, maybe thought about it. Which shows that he can sometimes either be short-sighted or is just too confident in his psychic abilities. Mojo Jojo, like Grodd, is very egotistical, but unlike Grodd, he lacks common sense. Will often do things that can be short-sighted and or completely idiotic. Also, despite his immense physical abilities, he doesn't actually physically fight that often, usually relying on weapons or robots or some kind of technology or artifact or enhancement. Even though he has been shown physically contending with the Powerpuff Girls on a few occasions, he tends to rely on equipment more than his physical abilities. moving on to their notable wins and losses. Grodd has bested the Flash on multiple occasions, usually through some combination of planning or new technology. But he also tends to lose to Flash more often than he wins. He's also lost to non-superhumans like Batman in some series, and has been defeated by Justice League members multiple times. He's also been outsmarted by other intelligent characters like Lex Luthor, so potentially Mojo Jojo could outsmart him, but we'll get into that later. Potentially. Mojo Jojo has, on some occasions, defeated or depowered the Powerpuff Girls, and at least once he has successfully conquered the world, though he got bored of it. While he's also lost to the Powerpuff Girls many times, he's also been shown fighting and winning against other Townsville villains, such as the Gang Green Gang, which he's defeated at least twice. Comparing the two of them, their advantages and disadvantages are a lot more clear-cut than I expected them to be. Mojo Jojo is obviously far superior in terms of all physical abilities, and he has a more varied and powerful arsenal. He also seems to have a higher success rate, as he tends to win, or at least come close to winning, more often than Grodd. However, Grodd is smarter, his psychic abilities give him severe advantages, and he's less short-sighted and clumsy than Mojo Jojo, with his plans not backfiring so often, or at least not backfiring so quickly. Now, this match is shockingly close. While Mojo Jojo is drastically superior in terms of all physical abilities, Grodd is more intelligent, less short-sighted, and his powerful psychic abilities give him many advantages in physical combat, such as reading his mind or using telekinesis to throw him around. However, as mentioned before, his mind control could be resisted by a high... So this fight would come down to their equipment. Both have ways to theoretically win instantly. Grodd obviously has his devolution devices, which could revert Mojo Jojo back to a normal chimp, and at that point he'd be pretty easy to defeat. And Mojo could use that artifact that I mentioned before to turn Grodd into a dog, which, if you're giving Grodd his devolution devices, you should be giving Mojo Jojo that artifact. I mean, it's only fair. However, generally speaking, Mojo's equipment is much more powerful, being able to keep up with all three Powerpuff Girls at once on some occasions. And if Grodd were scaled to stronger characters or stronger universes, like at the very top tiers of Grodd, he could have a very good chance of winning. But this was average Grodd, not strongest Grodd. And I'm sorry, but his general strength and abilities is nowhere near enough for him to best someone like Mojo Jojo. Though his odds aren't completely terrible, I just don't see him winning. So I would give this matchup to Mojo Jojo. That begs the question, what about the next matchup?